Journalist Javed Rana is with us to explore the political transition in Syria and its impact on regional geopolitics and international peace and security. Good afternoon, Javed. Thanks for joining us on NewsHour today. Now, how will Syria's political transition impact the broader regional geopolitics, particularly in terms of alliances and power dynamics?
Well, Syria is a kind of a country where not only the regional countries, but also the so-called great powers have deep interest. And that is because of the geostrategic landscape where this particular country exists. Now, in a broader picture, it's Russia, it's Americans, they have their deep interest. And now the bigger issue here is basically about Israel, because on one side, we see that the Americans are hell-bent upon supporting Israel at every cost. I think this is a bigger part of the problem. But again, we have to see a silver lining, and the silver lining is the role of the Turkey. And that is where everybody is getting jealous of, because many European countries, the Western countries have been referring about, they sounds like it's suspicious. As a matter of fact, the Turkey has gained more than anybody else in the region. And I think part of the reason is that the Turkey was concerned about the fact that since there are nearly 3 to 5 million Syrian refugees who have been on the either they are on the border side or inside Turkey, because of which there was a lot of problems inside Turkey. And Turkey wanted there has to be stability in Syria. So therefore, Turkey had to put lot of efforts inside Syria to get it stabilized. But again, the point that you have raised, there is also a convergence of interest of the regional countries, and also at the same time there is also divergence of the interest, a clash of the interest. And I think in a broader picture, I foresee that obviously the West will continue to support apartheid structure in the occupied Palestinian territory, which so far has conducted nearly 800 airstrikes inside Syria, literally destroying all the military capability of Syria. This is a bigger problem. Turkey, on the other hand, wants that these YPJ, all these terrorist groups who've been carrying out attacks inside Turkey over the last 4 decades, those should be dismantled. But the trouble again here is that in Syria, Israel and USA has been backing up these terror groups, despite the fact that the US declared them as a banned outfit, as a terror group. So in a broader picture, I think the interim government, which it's still premature, how it would handle these varying interests, divergent interests of the regional countries, and also the interest of the great powers. But again, we have to see in what manner the policy of the President Donald Trump would move. As I foresee it, obviously it is going to pursue the political and greater Israel's agenda when it comes to the USA under President Donald Trump. And that would remain a bigger part of the problem in days and weeks and months to come.
Okay, I just want to ask you about Assad for a moment here. Just before we got you on live, we had a news report on the mass graves that have been discovered in Syria. Insurmountable pain and suffering has been endured by the Syrian people. Nevertheless, there's a sense of jubilation now. But surely he needs to be held to account. We know he's taking refuge in Russia. How do you see the fate of Assad unfolding going forward?
Well, I think so far as getting Assad back to Syria for any possible trial, I don't foresee that happening in any time in near future. Obviously, Russia is going to shield him, Russia is going to protect him. For the sake of its own credibility, he would not be handed back to the new Syrian government. But again, the reference that you made about the mass graves in Syria, that is just tip of the iceberg of the industrial scale of the torture and kind of the sufferings that he caused over the period of the time to the Syrian. There have been so many torture cells that he built up over the period of time. There were the basements where nobody could have gone, even if there were some human rights monitors to know about the whereabouts of some of the missing people. They could not have found that. He was a very cruel man, a brutal man. And then over the period of the time, he built up a structure in Syria whereby nobody could have reached those basements. And in many cases, there were prisoners who have been languishing in Syrian jails from 1971 to onwards. That shows how cruel and callous the regime, both of his father and his, have been. And then also, very sadly, there has been a sectarian angle. Iran has been part and parcel of the suffering of the Syrian people. They took over literally Syria. They did use it as a springboard for Palestinian. That was more a PR exercise, but behind the scene, what was happening, that was a terrible. I think all these dungeons, the torture of the Syrian people, that is just a beginning. We are just knowing a very little details about it. Mm-hmm. I think in days to come, there will be more mass graves in Syria. Those would be found. But again, at this particular point of time, Syrian government is putting its effort. New government has been putting its effort to stabilize the situation. But again, there will be challenges from within the HTS and other now political groups. No more they are now militant groups, because now they have got some kind of a de facto status of being Syrian government. I think there will be pressure from within the new government, because it is not just one HTS group, but there are also other groups who have been struggling hard for last 13 to 14 years. So I think in that context, there is going to be pressure on the interim government to Islamize the society. But all the indications that I'm getting now from Syria, that does indicate that at least to begin with, they are not going to bring any Islamic system the way Taliban government in Afghanistan has done. They have shown more rigidity. And I think they will try to create conditions, friendly conditions for the people. Only then they will start implementing some kind of Islamic laws. And I think the bigger issue will be to Islamize the economy. And for that to happen, the bigger challenge is to put in place interest-free economy in Syria. But again, that is something easier said than done at a time when Israel has been carrying out airstrikes, and people still feel insecure, though there is no internal threat anymore, but there is obviously continuing external aggression. That is where the real problem lies.
Okay, so how can the international community collaborate to support Syria's political transition while maintaining regional stability? You mentioned Turkey, obviously always has a vested interest because of the shared border and Turkey's border security. But which other countries will come into play here?
Well, I think the Europe's policy has been to basically, they are saying it's a wait and see. They've been making a lot of propaganda that we are seeing in what manner this new government in Syria is going to handle these minorities, as if Europe is so much caring about these minorities. That is not an issue. Basically, they are testing the grounds. I think they're all issues linked to bringing in democracy in Syria. That is not something which I believe the European or the West really believes in. They do use it as a PR exercise, but at the end of the day, they go for their own geostrategic interest. Given the fact that Israel is a policeman of the Europe, policeman of the USA, and I think that is at the heart of the discussion that is taking place in Europe right now. In a bigger picture, I think now they are saying that since HTS and other previous militant groups who are now in the government, they were declared as terrorist group. There have been UN Security Council resolutions against some of them, some of their leaders. And then also the European countries individually have also declared them terror groups. But now it seems that they appear to be accommodating them, and they are waiting the point that I made early on, that how far HTS government would oppose Israel's aggression in Syria. I think that is the bigger challenge right now from the European point of view for them to make a decision. But it seems that in a broader picture, the kind of the vibes that Damascus government, the new government in Damascus has generated, that is a very positive. It is a sending message to the Europe that this is an interim government. It will stay in power by March, and by then they will put in place the governance structure that is a part of it. And I think there are also credible reports suggesting that probably they will go for building up a constitution, new constitution of Syria, and they would hold a kind of a general elections. At this particular point of time, it is not clear whether it is going to be a presidential form of the government or a parliamentary form of the government. But certainly, remember, HTS, their background shows somehow or the other they do have they've been under the influence of Muslim Brotherhood. It's not just Al-Qaeda, that is the background they have. I think in terms of governance structure, we have seen the area previously they have proven their track record that they can govern Syria. But now, again, so far as the collaboration is concerned, I think my understanding is that the Europe will come to help them, maybe in a symbolic manner, but the real help will be will come from the Turkey. In a way, it will be also an additional burden on the Turkey's economy, because obviously Turkey is going to support them in a big manner. The support from the Arab countries would certainly be there, particularly from the Qatar, but some of the Arab countries like Saudi Arabia, like Egypt, they are also having a lot of concerns from their perspective, because they feel threatened, because this is in a way, the Arab Spring has been revived in the Middle East now. So they also fear that this can also, again, spill over to the other Arab countries. That is why they are exercising as kind of a caution. But given the fact that the Europe have shown some positive vibes, given the fact that the Americans are quite happy, so therefore I don't expect that there would be any immediate conspiracy which would be launched against this government by the countries like Saudi Arabia and Egypt. And you may recall, in Egypt, President Morsi's government was overthrown. It was allowed to run the government just for 2 years, and the reason being was simple, that he had some sort of Islamic credentials, and there was fear among the Arab countries that there may be a spillover to their borders.
Okay, now lastly, Javed, how can Syria's transition process be aligned with efforts to promote lasting peace and security in the region?
Well, I think it will take time. So far as the interim government is concerned, I think it is trying to stabilize itself. And I think so far we have seen that there have been power outages in Damascus and many other parts of Syria. And they have hired the services of experts. And the Prime Minister himself is an expert. He's an electrical engineer. I think that does show that the new government is going to hire the services of the people who matters, not on the political basis, not on the basis of the kith and kins that has been the part and parcel of the former dictator of Bashar al-Assad, because he had put in place a system whereby he was giving more benefits to his family members, and his decisions were based on the sectarian grounds. Now we are seeing that the HTS government is basically seems to be accommodating everybody, and what matters to them is basically hiring the services of those people who matter in the governance. But again, at this particular point of time, There is no established law on the basis of which they are going to operate. These are the bureaucratic procedures which are already in place. They are following it. But again, there is a bigger task, intellectual task that is going to be put in place. The constitution is going to be enacted, and I think there may be a kind of an interim constitution in place in weeks to come, in months to come. That is also a bigger challenge for the interim government. But going by the experience of the Idlib, I foresee that the Prime Minister was their governor early on, and I think the interim Prime Minister would replicate that experience onto the Damascus and other major urban centers in Syria. Since now there is a sense of jubilation in Syria right now, and the reason being is quite simple, that they have lived for decades under the dictatorship of a tyrant ruler. And now there is a popular phrase in Syria that even if there is a devil ruling Syria, he would be better than former President Bashar al-Assad. That shows the level of the frustration. But with the coming of HTS government, I think there is a great sense of relief. We have seen the journalists can report now independently. They've been allowed to report independently. Otherwise, we used to hear about the political propaganda of the former government. These are the new indicators. There is a new beginning now. But again, right now, the bigger challenge for Syria and the new Syrian government is not to put in place everything like the sewage issues, like the water issues, like the power outages issue. Bigger challenge is an external aggression, and the bigger challenge is how to navigate, because on one side, the new government wants to project itself that it is a moderate, but at the same time, it has been under pressure from within to Islamize the society. And then I think the new government is also struggling to seek a kind of a collaboration with the optics it has created from the Europe, from the West, where sanctions against Syria are lifted, where the individual leaders and the former militant groups who are now governing, sanctions against them are lifted, and they become more acceptable. And then obviously there is also a challenge within the Syria, and that is that the other militant groups like YPG, I mean, those have to be either dismantled or those have to be mainstreamed. And so far as their militant and terror background is concerned, particularly against Turkey, something has to be done also politically. Not only just going against them would resolve the problem, because at the end of the day, all these groups have to be mainstreamed. But again, there is also a bigger issue that these YPG and all these groups have been receiving fundings, allegedly receiving funding from Israel, all kind of support from Israel, all kind of support from the USA. And what kind of agenda USA has in this part of the region, that is still a questionable under President Donald Trump.
Javed, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time and your insight.
The growing tide of anti-Israel sentiments. What you see behind me is just tip of the iceberg of what is happening in the country. More than half of $52 billion black CIA budget is spent on espionage network in Pakistan. How would you handle it?
The US has looked upon Pakistan as an ally at one point and then as an enemy at the same time.
That is going to be the first legal reason on the basis of which he is going to be instantly ousted by the Supreme Court of Pakistan.
Joining us live, Javed Rana, who's an expert on politics and geostrategic issues.
In the world politics, which is not being driven by any moral principle, it is being driven by the hard geostrategic realities. In a broader picture, more countries would aspire to have nuclear weapons.